Hello, welcome. My name is Paweł Feliński, and welcome to my webinar on contracts in Scrum. For last 8, even 10 years, I work in Agile software development, particularly in Scrum, and I found the topic of contracts, any legal form of agreement between two companies, very critical for the success of these kind of projects. And I would like to bring up the topic and tell a couple of more words about it to all of you. This session is recorded. I think the link to the movie will be available no later than tomorrow, maybe in 2 days. So if you'd like to share the session or look at the session again, please don't hesitate to do it. Moreover, if you have any questions during these 30 minutes, please type them on the chat of the session, either during my my speech or at the end. I will reserve a couple of minutes for any questions and answers if you appear. So I have worked in Scrum for the last 10 years, starting in a position of product owner, Scrum Master, team member at the very beginning, although it wasn't Scrum, it was extreme programming. Then I coach and train various companies, starting from small startups to big corporations. And I would like to share a couple of thoughts of mine with you. For those who attend the previous webinar 2 weeks ago, you may know that this is the entire series of webinars as the result of How to Outsource Scrum Projects ebook by XSolve, the company I work currently for. We shared our know-how and our experience generally in the area of outsourcing projects, particularly in the Scrum method. And the ebook is available for free to everybody who's interested. Now, once we realized that a couple of topics need some more investigation, maybe some more thoughts and discussion online, we thought that webinar would be the best part for the best way to follow it up. 2 weeks ago, we talked about benefits of outsourcing in Scrum. I explained a couple of benefits, profits, not for the company providing outsourcing services, but for the customer of such a company, especially if you're working in Scrum. Today, the topic is contracts in Scrum, so the legal area of this kind of cooperation. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about product ownership, so some I guess, responsibilities that are in hands of the customer in such cooperation. Within a month, what do you pay for in Scrum? And finally, Scrum as a method from the customer perspective. The legal topic, any legal topic, is very hard to visualize. If we look at contracts, these are tons of papers, lots of letters, and I was really unhappy to realize that there won't be many charts during this presentation, especially comparing to the previous one where I used a lot of them. On the other hand, I heard once that every and each good IT presentation has to have a triangle, and here it is. The most, I guess, the most known and famous triangle in IT software development, the so-called iron triangle. The iron triangle is a very old metaphor for 3, then in extension 4 dimensions of every project that we have in IT. If we're talking about dimensions of a project, we always mean the scope, what we want to get in our product, the budget, how much would cost, the schedule, when are we going to have it, and in between the quality, what's the quality or intended quality of the software. All these aspects, ideally at least, should be a part of any contract, any agreement, no matter whether we have a customer who is internal customer or an external customer or no customer. I mean a product from the shelf sold to the entire market where everybody could be the customer. All those 4 dimensions should be included. However, many times we see, and that was a part of my presentation 2 weeks ago, that something's wrong. Although we have a good intention about schedule, budget, scope, and quality, very often it happens that at least one of these dimensions is not realized. It's not delivered in such a shape that we would like to have it. We're either late, or it costs too much, or the scope is actually not what we wanted, or it is what we wanted. But the times changed, and now we want something else. Not talking about not measuring the quality at all, which could be the separate topic in general. I think that I managed to prove during the last session that Agile software development provides a set of tools that gives you one among of others very key benefit comparing to other methods of software development, which is ability to change, mainly to change the scope. So whenever we're talking about Agile software development, particularly in Scrum, we cannot have this triangle iron. These dimensions cannot be fixed. At least one, and usually it is one, has to be not fixed simply. And usually, because we can have any of these three, not talking about quality, I hope, any of those three could be not fixed, but usually what is not fixed is the scope. So customer comes and knows very well how much money do they have. They know exactly, or more or less exactly, when would they like to have the product. They do care about quality more or less, but they do. What might be open is the scope, talking about both what has to be delivered, but also what has to be delivered first in the first round. Based on that, we should do something with our contracts, the formal agreements that we have between companies, to make this scope flexible simply. And here are a couple of hints that I would like to share with you. If you're talking about IT contracts, we usually see two types of contracts: fixed price and time and material contracts. It doesn't mean that there are only two. There are many types or subtypes of fixed price contracts, same for time and material. But at least if you look from the very, very high perspective, for the big picture, these two types of contracts. If you're talking about fixed price contracts, first of all, we mean these are contracts that are result-oriented. In the contract, we write down what we want exactly. What is the final result? Not the vision, but all the details. We have specification provided to some extent, and both sides know what should be there at the end of the cooperation. Second of all, although it really depends on a particular subtype of the contract, usually it's not that just the price is fixed. It's both price and schedule, sometimes price and schedule and scope, including quality, of course, so everything. Finally, it's not that we don't appreciate any changes. Both sides believe that if the project is long, especially very long, year to year long projects, we should have some sort of process to change the scope or price or schedule. And usually in fixed price contracts, we talk about change request processes, very heavy processes that needs lots of signatures, lots of discussions, not very straightforward. I know it's very in brief, but if you would like to talk about fixed price contracts very briefly, that's it. Those are the key things that we would see. On the other hand, time and material contracts are service-oriented contracts. Of course, we do deliver product, we do deliver result at the end, but the contract is type of service. By service, I mean that we are buying time and materials or people, body leasing contracts, or team leasing contracts. So somebody that will provide me a service, and as a part of the service, they're going to develop something for me. Fixed price is possible in this type of contracts. However, we can have various variations here. It might be fixed price per time unit, or per person unit, team unit, or even work unit. So a bit different approach to price comparing to fixed price model contracts. And finally, it's not the case always, depends on details, but the scope is more flexible comparing to fixed price contracts in general, because here we provide a service, and by default at least, we can change the scope in the meantime. Now, this is everything that we know, or project managers usually know, because I bet that you met both types of contracts in your so far IT development experience. There are more, of course. Intentionally, I'm not mentioning other service contracts like service contracts for maintenance contracts and so on. I'm focusing on product development only. Now I would like to show you a couple of hints, a couple of features of a contract that we may name an agile contract that can be embedded in both types, fixed price, time and material contracts, and make them more and more agile, make them fit to Scrum reality and more. And here they are. The first one, iterative delivery cycle. No matter whether you were using Scrum, Extreme Programming, Crystal family of methodologies, what is really a key, and we look at any of these techniques and we see it immediately, are iterations. In Scrum sprints, in Extreme Programming, just iterations. We are delivering software in iterations, and very often, if you look at fixed price or time and material contracts, they're completely missing. So we have a fixed deadline, we have a fixed budget. I'm not touching the scope at the moment. Still, we are not talking about any iterations in the contract at all. Why not? I think that embedding the idea of iterations in the contract will, first of all, make it fit to reality more. Second of all, opens to both parts of the contract quite interesting opportunities of getting benefits from this iterative approach. Inspection and adaptation at the end of each cycle. Software demonstration that we have in Scrum no matter which type of contract you will write, right? However, here it is by default and may be obligatory for both parts. If we compare default, very general fixed price model contract and time and material contract, there's nothing about iterative delivery cycle in both of them. Still, it is doable from legal point of view, and I think it's very important to have a couple of words about iterations written down in the contract. If you're talking about iterative delivery cycle, we should not omit the other highly important feature of agility, highly flexible scope. I would like to put some accent on the highly, because as I said previously, even in fixed price contracts, we can experience situation when the scope is changed, change procedures, and so on. By talking highly, by meaning highly flexible scope, I mean there's no big, no advanced and very time-consuming procedure for changing the scope. Usually, when you construct a contract, it is obligatory. It is an obligation that the customer gives to the outsourcing company, saying, I want you to deliver me what I want to be delivered right now, and they treat it as a thing that will not create any trap for you. However, this trap itself, in busy days that we have nowadays, it's very rare to experience a situation where the business reality is not changed, it's frozen. So any way of changing the scope in the middle of the project, it's very, very profitable, not only for the customer, not only for the contractor, but also for the customer. If you looked at the contracts model, fixed price, there's nothing that I would name highly flexible scope feature. However, in time and material, by default, we could expect it. The third feature, very obvious here, I guess, and related to the previous one, this should be a service type of contract. Depending on a particular country or even a continent culture, we have different types of contracts from legal point of view in a particular place. However, the overall division result contracts versus service contracts is more or less in place all over the world. If we are talking seriously about flexible scope, we'd rather use a service type of contract, not a result one. By service, I mean we're put a couple of words about the overall vision of the final product in the contract, but we are not specifying line by line in all details of the final result. We are buying time, material, teams, not the final state of the product. That gives us an obvious flexibility. And again, fixed price contracts, not necessarily keen on it. Time and material, yeah, why not? That would be good, the right approach if you'd like to choose one of these two at the very beginning. Now, feature number 4. It's very, very funny. Many companies that are using so-called agile contracts tend to really rarely embed any agile terminology in it. I don't know why. If we have sprints, why are not we talking about sprints in contracts? If we have Scrum Master development team, if we have a product owner, we should use these particular people. We should even create a dictionary of such terminology at the beginning of the contract, as we usually do for any other topics. Embedding agile terminology means the contract is first of all easy to understand for people that are not related to legal arts. Very easy to be shown and shared with the development team, so that the team understands what we're talking about, and using common language, Scrum roles, Scrum artifacts, and so on. Everybody who reads the Scrum guide knows what does it mean. If we're using the common language, there is less chance to make a mistake or misunderstanding. I looked at several contracts, sample contracts, both fixed price, time and material ones. Nobody forbids to use agile terminology in these contracts. It's really used for, I don't know, honestly, what kind of reasons. That's why I put question marks here, because I cannot judge which contract is better talking about this particular feature. One of the key agile terminology is acceptance. We say product owner accept an increment during the sprint review. We say product owner accept release, somebody else accepts the software. In any contract, we have a separate piece of paper, a separate document, where somebody accepts part of the work or the entire work that is done. To be honest, I'd like to have in an agile contract an acceptance procedure. Not only to say that product owner accepts increment, but let's write down in details what does it mean, when it happens, how it happens, what's the formal document of acceptations. It doesn't mean that we need a huge process here, a huge procedure with a lot of documentation, but at least we have to know what we agreed on. Very often I see a situation when a team demonstrates the increment during the sprint review. Product owner says, well, that's okay. I have no questions, no comments, and that's it. Does it mean this increment, this part of functionality is accepted? Can it go to production? What if in 2 or 3 weeks the customer comes and says, well, I need some changes here? Is it a change that they should pay separately for, or this is a change because there's a bug in what they were shown a couple of weeks ago? This is very fuzzy. And if we put such a procedure directly in the contract, that makes the life of both sides much, much easier. Again, nothing really detailed about the procedure of acceptance in fixed price contracts nor time and material contracts, but there's no problem with adding such a paragraph into the document that we're signing together. Acceptance is one thing, termination of the contract is another. One of the benefits of iterative approach is that we can be paid from sprint to sprint, iteration by iteration, because we deliver part of working software from iteration to iteration. Both sides, the contractor and the customer, should have a right to terminate. The way how we're going to terminate, that's a completely different story. However, good agile contracts have it embedded. What does it mean a right to terminate? In every moment, a customer can say, okay, we're in the sprint 5. After sprint 6, I'm good. I'm enough. That's all I needed. You don't need to develop anything more. I won't pay for anything more. And the contractor should be good about it. And the other way, if the contractor for some reason wants to terminate the contract, they should be able to do it because they're providing service. They're not working on a product from the very beginning to the very, very end. It is a good habit, for instance, to have a notice period in here. 1 or 2 sprints long. That's what I usually see in the contracts. So if you want to terminate it, you say it today. That means 1 or even 2 more iterations we're working together as usually, and then that's the end. I think none of the parts of the contract would like to be surprised with the fact that tomorrow we have no product. No, it's no project. It's not the case. In time and material contracts, that's not a problem. In fixed price contracts, it's all up to what we put inside. I've seen a couple of contracts where it would be very, very difficult, because if we agree on a final result, we cannot terminate the contract easily if there's no final result delivered. However, in some other ones, we put a paragraph about it, and it's all fine. However, to terminate cooperation, to terminate the project in a kind way, we would like to have an exit plan. No matter, by the way, whether we're talking about agile contracts, waterfall contract, any other contracts, a plan for exit is very, very important. What does it mean? Well, one thing is when and how we are terminating cooperation. The other one, what we're doing about it. Assuming that the product is not fully done, comparing to the original product backlog, original specification. We are, let's say, 70% done, and the customer is good about it. This 70% is fine for everybody. What about the copyrights? What about the code repository? What about the database access, and so on and so on? There are many technical level details that are very natural at the end of the project that has no earlier termination, but if we terminate in the middle or at an end at the end of an iteration, these are very, very confusing. They take time. Somebody spends some work on it and would like to have it also embedded in our Agile contract. Again, no big difference between fixed price and time and material contracts, at least looking at those that I was happy to read. Still, it is very easy to embed them in, especially when we have possibility of terminating at the end of a sprint embedded in the contract. Finally, any how procedures are very, very helpful to create cooperation between contractor and the customer based on truth, based on being honest to each other. Very often, even if we embed Agile terminology, we say, okay, product owner, so the customer representative will be present at the sprint planning, or we accept the increment during the sprint review. Why not go a bit more into details? Whose presence is mandatory during sprint planning, who's at daily scrum, who's at sprint review and retrospective. What if the customer representative is not present at product backlog refinement? Should we cancel it, or should we plan or refine the backlog without input from the customer? Does it still make it's valid or not, and so on and so on. This is a protection mainly from the side of the team, the development team, so the contractor, because very often people seem to be left by the customer. Okay, we know something they want us to deliver, but we'd like to talk to them. Can we? What time? Do they have any slots for us to communicate? What are the procedures? I'm not a follower of a very long procedures embedded in the contract. However, if you're talking about these key meetings provided by Scrum or Agile in general, especially at the beginning of the product, I think it's really, really important to have it defined. It should be a part of the contract or one of the appendix to the contract. No difference between both types of agreements that I read so far, because usually there know how descriptions of these procedures. However, there's a lot about what should be done and by who. I have to admit that. Okay, a bit long, but still a summary. I define here 8 features of good contracts, agile contracts, especially in Scrum. I think that whatever Scrum brings to the table when we talk about software development should be there in the contract, because the contract should not be should fit to reality, should not be something else comparing to what we are agreeing on during our discussions. So let's write down a couple of words about iterative delivery cycle. Let's have the scope flexible. Let's define what product backlog is, who is going to reorder it, who's going to slice user stories, what user story is, or use cases if we prefer to use this. Let it be a service contract, so team leasing, bundle leasing, time and material type of contract, not necessarily fixed price. Let's use the Agile terminology. If we are not cool about it, let's define it at the beginning of the contract. Definitely, we have to have a procedure of accepting software, especially that we deliver it frequently. That's the benefit of Scrum. Let's have the right to terminate. Let both sides of the contract have the right to terminate it. And if we terminate the contract, let's have an exit plan and some other procedures defining how exactly we're going to work during Scrum events. That's all that I prepared. However, there's much more in general in terms of contracts. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a Scrum coach, so I cannot give you more details about particular paragraphs, but I know who can. Craig Lerman and Bas Vuda, as a part of their book Practices for Scaling Clean Agile Development, they define or wrote much more about all types of contracts, including fixed price with subtypes, time and material with their subtypes, comparing them to the reality of Agile. If you're interested in it, you don't need necessarily to buy the book. Go to the page agilecontracts.org, where you can read a primer, which is a part of the book, and they go in details of 40 plus pages. Not necessarily for IT people, more for lawyers, but I think the language they use is obvious for both parts. So we'll read much more about pros and cons of different contracts and how to hack them. In 2 weeks from now, I would like to move from the legal part more to product ownership. So once we have the contract signed, what does it mean to be a customer for a Scrum team? What does it mean to be product owner for my Scrum team? What product ownership and how do I get what I really want? That's in 2 weeks. I'd like to thank you for your patience. Thank you for your presence during this this webinar. And if you have any questions, please unmute and ask them, or write on the chat, and I'm going to reply on them. Okay, I can't see any questions. I can't hear any questions. Thank you very much then for your participation, and hope to see you in 2 weeks. Have a good day, have a good evening, depending on where you are. Goodbye.